Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
If you like listening to Simblified, you must listen to other IVM productions like On Course, an excellent podcast for getting information on foreign education and getting you there. New episodes out every Monday. Check it out on the various podcasting apps and on the IVM Podcast app as well. Hello and welcome to Simblified, our endeavor to curate the wisdom of the world and share it with you, our discerning and erudite listeners.
Also known as our attempt to share shady information muddled together through Are You Feeling Lucky Google searches and poorly referenced Wikipedia articles to listeners who know better. Wikipedia, if you're lucky.
To retain all 3.14 listeners we have, we'll go with option 1, okay?
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
So let's start with our regular segment, which is the profundity of the week, which comes from the gift that keeps on giving, that is the family WhatsApp group.
I guess what they say is true. The family gives you everything. They raise you, they care for you, give you lodging when you travel to their city, gossip about your cousin who's dating some shady boy, and even hilarious content for your obscure and shady podcast.
Very true, Naren. And this week's gem is another mathematical good morning message.
My favorite kind.
Yes. And this goes like this. Speed is calculated as miles per hour.
I know where this is going.
But life is calculated as smiles per hour.
Oh no.
So increase your smile to get extra mileage in life. Good morning. There's a lot to unpack here, by the way. Like a Robert Frost poem.
Yeah.
I feel there is much more to this message than a terrible pun. Okay, I think this is a final attempt by my family's elders to improve my pathetic maths and physics skills. They're probably thinking, maybe if I disguise equations as good morning forwards, he may finally learn them and abandon his godforsaken advertising job and complete that BSc.
I mean, very, very possible.
No, so I have a question here. Like this, your Robert Frost reference. So, do you think one day, like in class, like right now they analyze poems and all that. So, do you think one day we'll actually
analyze
WhatsApp forwards? Because that is the cultural. What's the phrase? Milieu, de rigueur. One of those French words of this generation.
And sometimes you really wish they would carry the analogy towards logical. Like speed is calculated miles per hour, life is calculated smiles per hour. And there's one place called Shah Piles Clinic, which probably counts its success in piles per hour. So that would be like so profound. Instead of that, they just truncated out of a sense of nicety. Yeah. So now, without looking at a computer screen, what is the equation of speed, young Srikeit?
Keanu Reeves plus Sandra Bullock equal to bus goes boom.
You're hopeless.
and even so I'm seeing this forward that you sent, and even though the imagery of the forward has a young white girl standing in front of a very European meadow, almost Enid Blytonish in his demeanor. It is a quintessentially Indian forward.
Why so, Chuck?
Because only in India would you be so concerned about mileage, even when it comes to smiles. We will squeeze the maximum out of even happiness, like the final drops in a packet of armrest. We are talking about a country that actually puts toothpaste tubes between doors in order to squeeze out.
Very true. Anyway, but speaking about Indian summers, those Aussie cricket fellows couldn't even take the March heat. And have folded to the Indian cricket test team, who have completed a historic and superb 2-1 test cricket win.
Today?
Yes, on the day we record this podcast. But anyway.
The Aussies were so eager to run off from India that the last match finished a full day and a half early. The Aussies were like, this heat is totally not worth it, mate. And I believe this is this magical thing called armrest for lunch. Screw this cricket business.
And this series had everything. Skill, talent, tension, but above all drama. Since a certain very, very special Hyderabadi gentleman decided to make biryani out of an Aussie attack in Eden Gardens in an epic comeback victory, India-Australia have always been spicy affairs.
I notice you people are insidiously garnishing this entire podcast with dodgy food metaphors, armrest, biryani and whatever. Is this some underhanded trick to tempt me to abandon my diet or what?
Aren't we glad food is banned in this studio?
Very much so.
So I'm on a diet, as everyone knows, and sometimes it becomes really great. So sometimes you stoop to crime. So, yeah.
What a brilliant way.
So this morning we had a bunch of visitors and at work, and so yesterday our guys had very thoughtfully procured Britannia Good Day biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
And for safekeeping, they were kept in my office.
Oh.
So, not safekeeping, because otherwise it's a factory, right? So infested with rats.
Yeah.
So they'll care. So my
That's
office
no
was,
way to call your workers.
and,
Do any of them listen to the podcast, by the way?
no.
You should play it as mandatory for soundtrack in your factory. No?
Macha, we have severe attrition problems. So yesterday evening it was a particularly difficult time. I was really ravenously hungry. I had nothing to eat because policy. I've decided.
So victim of your own policy.
Yeah, and of all these Britannia Good Day biscuits. So I decided to take one. Who's going to miss one?
Yeah.
It turns out that these champs had basically got one per guy who was visiting.
Are you?
Yeah. So this morning there was one shot. And
One shot.
yeah. And all these turncoats looked at me, boss. I don't know how they figured out. It's terrible. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with this whole thing, but
You started us somewhere with your diet.
yeah. So anyway, why all this cricket talk suddenly?
Because the topic of this week's podcast is one of the most interesting and controversial innovations to enter the world of cricket. The DRS, or to use its full Christian name as Chuck would put it, the Umpiring Decision Review System, or uDRS.
Fitting, because everyone's milking the controversy from the udders of the cricketing cow.
That's terrible, Chuck, even by your standards.
Thankfully, we even just call them standards.
True. But let me lay my cards on the table. I'm quite the cricket illiterate. And the extent of my cricketing knowledge and interest extends to who wins World Cups. That's about it, right? Sir Ravindra Jadeja memes and the choice utterances by Kohli of CNBC fame towards opponents' female relatives. Yeah.
CNBC.
I know. I was just chatting up with Srikeit before he started recording, and he told me about that I must tell my audience that they don't consider me a cricketing brain. So they very patronizingly told me, you know what, there's a game called cricket and there's something called DRS, we're going to talk about it and you're going to be part of it. I said, okay, cool. And so I remembered this cousin of mine, and when we were children, he was my best friend, and he was strange. Okay, so one of the things we used to do, we were like 4 or 5, I don't remember. So he would steal sugar from the kitchen and not eat it. What he would do is he would put it on the floor and then wait till the ants got there. And then both of us would lie on the floor, he'd also make me do it, and wait for the ants. Just watch the ants come, pick up the grains and go. And ants are very extremely busy. So they come rushing in, they take them, then they sort of talk to each other with their antennae, and then they take it and then go there randomly. But they're extremely busy. They don't actually do anything, but they're like Hajar going here, there and all. And this guy, he grows up to become a cricket fan. So there's some metaphor in there. So that is my takeaway.
Great connect there.
Wow.
But then he got back at me. I must confess to my listeners also. So he says, so I met up with him after a long time. He lives in America, and he'd come down. He says, what is your favorite game now? And I said chess. And he had a laugh because he remembered the cricket thing. And he told me that he had a friend who took up chess because he found his day job too fast for him. And what was his day job? He was a meditation teacher. Wow. So apparently, yeah. So he's even with me. So
Okay, but let's simplify this thing called DRS for even the cricketing agnostics out there, because you never know when it might come up in a group discussion or personal interview.
Yeah, so I mean the reason why DRS exists is because there are a few fundamental truths in life. Death, taxes, and sports fan disagreeing with refereeing or umpiring decisions.
Absolutely, yeah.
And being human, and not the Salman Khan t-shirt scam kind of way, but real Homo sapiens sapiens, umpires are prone to making errors. And with technology enabling us to examine the sport closer, there is a constant attempt to minimize these errors.
And cricket was one of the first sports to use TV replays to settle decisions. The use of the third umpire to decide runouts and stumpings started in 1992. And Naren, the first batsman to be given out run out by the third umpire was?
Sachin?
That's correct. How do you know?
Wow. I thought Sachin was the right answer to everything, actually. He's like 42, no? What was the question? Yeah. All cricketing answers is Sachin.
Yeah, fair enough. Who holds the best bowling in the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in Cochin? Also Sachin.
Yeah.
Astute, yes. Tendulkar was given a run out by third umpire Carl Liebenberg of the fielding of the legendary South African fielder John T. Rhodes. No better person to have effected the first ever run out by
Third umpire.
To be given out by a third umpire at the paltry non-Sachin Tendulkarian score of 11.
And after that kind of start, no wonder the BCCI hates tech and cricket so much.
That's true. It's like after IIM Ahmedabad realized that Chetan Bhagat was one of their alumni, they stopped like all the English courses. Like, this is clearly not working out for us.
No more soft skills.
Anyway, the third umpire was the only form of tech in cricket for the better part of 2 decades. Strangely enough, because everything else seems to have progressed at such a huge rate. But it didn't even begin to reduce umpiring decision errors in cricket.
Yep, most of the errors happened on decisions whether the ball had edged the bat for catches or whether the ball was in line to hit the stumps for leg before wicket. And these could not be solved by simple TV replays.
And at this point, I must apologize to any of our American, German, Dutch listeners. Apparently, there are a few.
But can't these fellows like come to an amicable settlement? You know, this is what we used to do when we were playing cricket among friends. See, you batted for half an hour, no? Now give us the charge.
Think that works in top flight.
I know. I'm just trying to imagine Virat Kohli's reaction to your argument. In a barrage of the above mentioned kind words and middle fingers would be understandable.
Imagine also how the scorecards would change, dismissed by pleading.
He made a convincing argument. Mother called.
Dismissed because Vaida. Anyway, unlike your building fellows, professional cricketers and the national boards aren't as easily convinced, Naren, so sorry. Which is why the uDRS was tested in an India versus Sri Lanka match in 2008 and officially introduced in a New Zealand versus Pakistan match in 2009.
But what is this DRS and what does it do?
And at this point, we will take a little break, Naren. So we will satiate your curiosity as well as the curiosity of all our listeners, as well as the ICC themselves who probably haven't figured out how this thing works after this very short break.
Be right back.
Strategic timeout.
Every film has a hero, heroine, villain and songs. But what makes a film truly memorable are those great characters like Pappu Peja, Gabbar Singh, Mogambo, Calendar and several others like that. Join me every week as I sit down to talk to brilliant actors who have played some of the most memorable characters in Indian film history. This is Bollywood Scene Stealers. Tune into a new episode every Monday on iTunes, SoundCloud, Audioboom, the IVM podcast app, or any other podcast apps you like.
Welcome back to Simblified. And we are talking about the Decision Review System, or the DRS, which is the decision system in cricket, which is causing a lot of controversy these days. And before we went to the break, Naren, you had asked what DRS comprises of. So DRS is actually a combination of 3 different technologies to help an umpire make his decision. They are the Hawkeye for ball tracking, the Snickometer or Ultra Edge for listening for slight edges and nicks, and the Hotspot for determining ball impact.
That sounded like word salad to me. Simplify, please.
Okay. So let's take this one thing at a time. The Hawkeye is the oldest among these technologies. It was invented in the UK by a fellow, fittingly enough, named Paul Hawkins, not of cooker fame. The system works via 6 or 7 high-performance cameras, normally positioned on the underside of the stadium roof. So now we know there's another thing that has an underside, which tracks the ball from different angles. The video from the 6 cameras is then triangulated and combined to create a 3-dimensional representation of the trajectory of the ball.
Triangulation.
So, yeah.
It's the same thing that's used in GPS, isn't it? 3 satellites determining your position on one.
Exactly. Hawkeye does the same to predict the height, spin and trajectory of the ball. This is usually used to determine leg before wicket or LBW, that is whether the ball would have hit the stumps unless the batsman decided to block it with his pad.
And this is something not unique to just cricket. It's used in tennis as well, where it's used to verify like whether the ball has gone out of the line.
Yeah, I mean, and also Hawkeye is not infallible, but it is accurate to up to 5 millimeters or 0.19 inch, but is generally trusted as an impartial second opinion in sport.
Wow. And I used to dispute clean ball calls even when you could clearly see the ball, the dust imprint on the wall. इधर नहीं लगा
नहीं लगा मेरा बैट है.
You're clearly the moral barometer of our podcast, Naren.
Yes, and moving on to the second technology in DRS, the snickometer, which is an acoustic marvel. Okay, invented by the English computer scientist Alan Plaskett. It analyzes the sound patterns picked up by the stump microphone.
Yeah, so basically if the ball has hit the bat, then you see a huge spike. I love the stump microphone. Apart from helping good decisions, I mean, that's a secondary objective. The primary objective of the stump microphone is to capture on-field utterances by cricketers.
Yeah, Dhoni has been the master of wit behind the wickets. Like when scolding his bowler for not spinning the ball because he had placed Cheteshwar Pujara in the slips, he said, ये घूमेगा इसीलिए पुजारा को इधर रखा है या वो ताली बजाने के लिए नहीं खड़ा है.
There are other gems as well. I'm not sure how many of these were picked up by stump microphones, but they are worth a mention in any case. My favorite story is when English all-rounder James Ormond walked out to the pitch. There was Mark Waugh. He was playing against England were playing against Australia that time. So Mark Waugh said, "Damn, look who it is, mate. You're not even good enough to play for Surrey. So what are you doing here playing for England?" So James Ormond, without any hesitation, looked at him and said, "Maybe not, but at least I'm the best player in my family." That was brilliant.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So Glenn McGrath, he was also notorious for sledging. So there was this Zimbabwe player, I forget his name, who was a little stout, and Glenn McGrath bowls to him, and then he misses or something like that, and Glenn McGrath runs right up to say, "You've become so fat," or something like that. "How come you're so fat?" So he says, "Every time I screw your wife, she gives me a biscuit."
I'm not sure.
The guys in the slip just fell down.
I'm not sure whether the protagonist was Glenn McGrath, but fair enough. So here's actually a very awesome one, okay, which is not part of any of these compilations. I found this on Reddit, okay, and this was actually the stump mic had a very integral role to play in this. So Channel 9 in Australia was broadcasting, I think, the domestic matches as in Aussie home games, and Gilchrist wanted the company to switch off the stump mics between overs because they would discuss strategy and all that, and they didn't want the strategy leaking out. So he made this plea, but the company refused to switch it off. So what he did was, and this is genius on Gilchrist's part, he stood up to the stumps and he started name dropping sponsor names that were competitors to the sponsors of that game.
Amazing.
So it is amazing. So if Coke was being advertised, he would talk about an over for Schweppes, apparently. If it was Ford, he would talk about some other car. And this is the line on Reddit. Channel 9 very quickly found where the mute button was. I love this story.
Amazing. But anyway, coming back to the technology, which is the snickometer, it gives a graphical representation of the sound of what the ball hit. A raw sound is cleaned up to remove ambient noise by filtering. What is displayed on the screen is what you see on an oscilloscope or in a piece of music technology software. If the ball hits nothing, then the snickograph shows nothing. If the ball hits the bat, then the wood of the bat vibrates to create a clean, sharp spike, and a short sound is heard. If the pad or glove is hit, the impact is spread over a longer period of time, and when no wood is clean, with no wood to cleanly resonate the graph, it is flatter. When more than one sound, say for example, if the bat hits the ground, and then what they do is they synchronize the audio plots with the slow-mo replays so they can figure out what exactly has hit first.
What hit where? So what caused which sound?
No, there is a technology in mechanical engineering where you can, I very, very dimly recollect it, but you can make out cracks in metal based on if you put an impact on how the sound travels through it. So there also a sound spectrum is analyzed, and
Okay, so
it's not like ultrasound. There is ultrasound, which is different. Ultrasound is echoing, and so if there are discontinuities here, this was another one I dimly recollect from my engineering days. A transferred wave of sound goes through the material, and then if there is any discontinuity, it gives a change in the spectrum, something like that.
Currently, the biggest crack in metal is Ozzy Osbourne. But
Ozzy Osbourne. My favorite quote is, of all the things I've lost, I miss my mind the most.
I'm wondering if the mic picked this up. Okay, the final tech component of the DRS is the hotspot. The use of infrared to determine ball impact. And this is the most complex piece of technology. In fact, it was primarily used for jet tracking and radar technology.
Kind of sad how technology goes from the high importance to the trivial, isn't it? Does like internet was initially developed as a military intelligence network, and now it is used to see cat videos and smartphones.
I think hardcore cricket fans would disagree with you, Naren, on the branding of cricket as trivial.
Or cat videos.
Exactly. Anyway, so hotspot uses two infrared cameras positioned at either end of the ground. These cameras sense and measure heat from friction generated by a collision, such as a ball on pad, ball on bat, ball on ground, or ball on glove.
Or Kohli on Smith. That's ultimate friction.
They're all white. They're just white. A black and white negative image of the incident is generated into a computer, which shows the ball's precise point of contact. And now with Ultra Edge, a hybrid of the SNCO and the hotspot. So what they do is they put the two together. The most microscopic of edges are identified for decisions. Wonder how many of legends like Bradman and Vivian Richards and Sachin would hold their esteemed records in the age of DRS.
Yeah, on that last note, I don't know if you remember this story, so I'm just remembering random cricket stories as you say things. Before all these names you mentioned, there was this legend of an English batsman called W.G. Grace. Okay, so W.G. Grace was notoriously pompous and cocky, and I'm sure actual cricket scores are very different from what happened. What got recorded in Wisden is very different from what actually happened on ground. So apparently one story goes that he was clean bowled and he coolly picked up the bails and put them back on, and the umpire sheepishly, and he was a towering person, so nobody had the balls to go and tell him to f off. Umpire meekly came and said, "Hey, listen, you're out." and W.G. Grace said back, he pointed to the crowd and said, "They've come to see me bat, not to see you umpire."
I've heard another version of this. So apparently W.G. Grace gets beaten and the ball just flicks the bails off. Okay, and that's it. It just it doesn't knock the stumps over or anything like that. And it's a windy day, so the W.G. Grace tells the umpire, "Windy day, isn't it, umpire?" So the umpire says, "Indeed, Dr. Grace. I hope it doesn't blow your hat off on your way back to the pavilion."
Oh, burn.
By the way, since you're talking about W.G. Grace, there's this author called Arthur Conan Doyle who happened to play one first class match, and he took one wicket, and that one wicket was W.G. Grace.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What a badass. Took W.J. Grace's wickets and wrote Sherlock Holmes. I mean, amazing. Yeah. So, I mean, but hotspot technology, which we are talking about in this entire space, it's super expensive though. It's $6,000 per day for the use of two cameras, or $10,000 per day for the use of four cameras. That's roughly around 6.5 lakhs rupees per day.
Per day.
Per day.
Not per test also.
No, it's per day. So
that into 5
into 5. I think the Indian BCCI would be really happy this last test got over in 3.5 days. Like 2 दिन का बच गया.
No. I was actually wondering, there's probably a deposit or something that's paid for the last.
Refund मिलेगा क्या?
Anyway, so 6.5 lakhs a day is, I think, only this seems expensive to us plebs who think that 150 bucks auto is expensive. This is pocket change for the BCCI.
all this sounds very impressive. So why is it controversial? This must solve all decision problems, no?
Unfortunately, no, Naren. Since this technology is implemented and interpreted by humans, plenty of new problems are created. It's like this old joke about tech support. One fellow calls tech support and for being unable to switch on his computer. After spending ages to help, trying to give that fellow simple instructions, the call center fellow finally gave up and he's like, "Sir, I figured out the problem. It lies between the computer and the chair." So, on that note, let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this break. Stick around.
Who's ahead in the league and what's cooking off the pitch? We at TFG bring all that you need to know about Indian football. Discussions, debate, banter, in-depth analysis with a touch of fun and fandom. This is the TFG Indian Football Podcast and we're a daily show. So check us out on YouTube and various other podcasting apps like iTunes, Audioboom, SoundCloud, etc.
And welcome back to part 3 of Tea Time with Srikeit, Naren and Chuck.
Also known as Simblified, our little podcast where today we are talking about DRS or the Decision Review System
and chamomile tea
with the pinky sticking out. And so we talked about the technology in DRS and the impressive
camera
work and microphone
cost,
work and all the cost involved. But
now,
still, as with all
problems?
things, I mean, it doesn't matter how many good things you have, it's not enough, and there are problems with it. We find problems with everything.
I have a serious question. When you have a sticky wicket, how often is it because someone's been having sex on it?
What? This is probably in the groundsman's code of ethics to not reveal or something, I guess. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Anyway.
This reminds me of that stupid old joke. What is the main difference between men's cricket and women's cricket?
What?
Don't tell me you guys don't know this.
No. First tell punchline, then laughter.
Yeah. So men's cricket has a short leg between two long legs.
Oh, you.
And women's cricket has a gully between two fine legs. A 7th standard me was cracking up for half an hour after seeing
These
this.
are those special...
Meantime, our producer making notes. How do we censor this out? Okay.
It's okay, Chuck. It's not just the 7th standard you. I think the 32-year-old you is also quite abused. Anyway.
Moving on. Problems with the DRS.
Yeah. So the biggest problem with the DRS is that not every decision can be reviewed without inordinately long breaks in play, which will make cricket, a 5-day long game, even more tedious than it already is.
Wow, good you guys are admitting it. I've known road construction which is more exciting.
Fair enough. Each team may make no more than 2 unsuccessful review requests per 80 overs during a test match and no more than 1 unsuccessful review request per innings during an ODI. So basically, if you got your review wrong, you've blown it.
Yeah, you've blown it.
You've blown it for the rest of the innings.
Yeah, I know, and I love the way they write cricket rules. It's almost like a legal book. Like if you read enough of the cricket rule book, you're somewhat like you're certified lawyer to do notary work. I guess.
And which means automatically there is a whole new strategizing component of when to call for reviews and when not to. So it's not the technology is constantly running, but you have to think about when to utilize it or not.
Is that a layer of complexity which needs to be...
Very much so, and not just complexity, there is also another thing where, Harsha Bhogle, he very astutely said that DRS has brought a preferential treatment, or so to say, a caste system into the game, where batsmen higher up the order who are better, or captains, can use up reviews over the lower order batsmen who can't really.
Yeah, like an experienced batsman over a new batsman who may not want to.
Yeah, exactly. And similarly, strike bowlers have a bigger influence to use DRS over part-timers. Right? This makes the game, which is supposed to give everyone an equal chance of playing and equal benefits of umpiring in every way. Like, for that matter, the notoriously bad Chris Martin has an equal chance of scoring a century at the beginning of an innings as maybe a Sachin Tendulkar does. And this suddenly brings this whole preferential treatment into play, that if you're a better batsman, you have a better chance of getting a DRS versus a poorer batsman.
Yeah. So apart from this caste system, as it were, the technology itself, like the theoretical technology itself, is not 100% accurate, especially with Hawkeye, which is ultimately an assumption of trajectory. In fact, the Hawkeye officials themselves admitted in December 2014 that their review technology made an error in a decision to give Pakistan opener Shan Masood out in the second test against New Zealand in Dubai. And I remember myself, like long back when Hawkeye was still a thing, at least on for broadcast. This was during the India-England series in 2002, almost immediately after the epic India-Australia series. This is the one where India won in England after like so long. Like this is a test where Dravid scored that incredible 148 and Sachin and Ganguly also scored centuries. That epic match where Ganguly like had the balls to put the team into bowl and things like that. Well, I remember that very vividly, clearly. And I forget who was the bowler, which Indian was bowling. It was very clearly out LBW. I mean, you look at it and you know it's LBW. And bowler knew it, the batsman knew it, the umpire immediately raised his finger without any hesitation. And there was no DRS in those days, but they would show Hawkeye after the LBW.
It was just for the spectator.
And shockingly enough, that was missing the top of the off stump very clearly. There were two commentators. One of them was surprised. The other one was Navjot Sidhu, who was like, I remember his words very. Oh, that is so plumb. That is incredible. Another wicket for India. Hawkeye. Oh, Hawkeye be damned. I told you it never works. But that was so telling that is there some things that technology gets wrong that the human eye intuitively gets right? I don't know.
Yeah,
in which case, what is correct over here?
And one more assumption is that when you're seeing technology involved, the reason why technology is getting involved is because there is a margin of error that an umpire has. Now, if there is still a margin of error when technology is involved, then you suddenly why bother with the whole thing? Like, let's just go with the umpiring.
There's one other flaw in this whole thing is that it is a technology which can never be, by definition, never be validated experimentally. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So it is always going to be an opinion. That's
exactly,
all it's going to be.
I mean, which is what they take it and then they finally make a call on that basis.
Yeah. And thing about cheating also, right? So I don't know much about DRS, but didn't that Australian fellow ask the dressing room if he should take a review? Or there's some hoo-ha about...
that was Steve Smith, smarmy Aussie captain, who tried to ask his better informed dressing room buddies who had access to replays if he should take a review.
That was a no-no, right?
Absolute no-no. This incident caused the otherwise phlegmatic BCCI to have a moment of wit when they said DRS equal to dressing room review system on their Facebook. Anyway, Kohli charged at Smith, yelling at him like he had eaten his favorite dessert that he had been saving in the office fridge and leaving a note saying, "Thanks, mate, it was delish."
So Kohli must have called him my dear fellow or something.
Exactly.
I say, old chap.
You may have it mistaken. Anyway, and finally at the end of it all, there's the ethos of it, right?
Yeah.
It just disrupts the flow of the game. Everyone's like basically just standing around waiting for some light to go off somewhere. And as former umpire Dickie Bird said, it undermines the authority of the on-field umpires. Like at the end of the day, you either get rid of them altogether, or otherwise they are always like, okay, if my decision is overturned, then I feel like, okay, I'm not a good enough umpire. It puts that additional pressure on the umpires.
Glorified coat hanger syndrome.
Exactly,
all over again. So this is almost like another... although I don't think this argument has been made too much, is like another example of AI taking over jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way.
And the flow and referee authority argument is so strong that football, the most popular game on the planet, has stayed away from video refereeing altogether. Because they're like, you know what, we play... I mean, and cricket actually has a game, it's full of interruptions anyway. So therefore it is more amenable to this kind of technology coming into play.
But football is the flow of it.
It's the flow of it. It is entirely on the flow of it. Because momentum is very important in football. When you're playing, one side is playing very well. If you keep stopping the game all the time, then it'll always be a problematic thing in there.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to watch football, right? All this technology to evaluate fight where there's some leather ball brushed against a bat, and much more entertaining to see 22 guys kick a ball.
And just to clarify for our American listeners, when we say football, we're talking about the actual football, not that thing you call football.
Yeah, I know. And just so that I can define football to you, which was very beautifully defined, that it's a game where 22 people chase a ball around a pitch for 90 minutes, and in the end the Germans win.
Or Chelsea.
Yeah.
On that note, we have some very interesting cricketing terminologies and etymologies of the words, of where their origin comes from. And there are some really, I mean, they have some really very English origins in some way.
Yeah.
And
some of them are really droll, like the word googly, which is the wrong one. So you pretend to bowl a leg break and it actually comes into you.
Yeah.
And it's so called because it made the batsman's eyes goggle. So that is where the googly comes from.
So quaint and English, no?
Yes,
It makes the eyes goggle.
Oh, say, old chap, rather good googly that.
So something a sort of derivative from that is the Chinaman delivery. Also relevant in this match because India's first Chinaman bowler, Kuldeep Singh, made his debut in the Dharamshala test. So that's so a Chinaman bowler is basically a left-arm unorthodox spin bowler, and this is a very interesting definition, and it's something that is such a cricket thing. I mean, the etymology of this term. So what happened was there was a test match between England and West Indies long back in the 1930s, and there was this West Indies bowler of Chinese origin called Ellis Achong. Okay, and he was bowling left arm unorthodox spin, but the term wasn't Chinaman or anything, and he got the batsman out. There's a batsman called Walter Robbins, and he was out. I think he was clean bowled or something, and he had never seen something like this before. So on his way back to the pavilion, he said, "Wow, fancy being done in by a bloody Chinaman," and so that term stuck.
Another very interesting one and very relevant to our episode here about the word umpire itself. The word umpire evidently stems from the French word non-pair, which means not equal or odd man.
Whoa.
This is to imply that the odd man is called in to make decisions between two contestants. So you have the odd man out kind of coming and making the decisions for you. So there's some...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we could go on and on if we talked about the origin of cricketing terms. So it's best we leave it at this.
So yeah, it was most educational for me to find out that a game as
dull.
Yeah, I was struggling for the more juiced. So this is it was good, and it's always good to see people trying to use technology to make sports better.
Correct.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've given you enough to talk about cricket with your cricket crazy uncle the next time you're stuck watching a match with him.
Yes. And if you don't remember anything, just say it's all fixed. It always works.
Exactly, guys. And again, so thank you so much for listening to Simplified.
Subscribe to Simplified if you don't already. Also, we have a host of other awesome shows on the IndusVox Media Network. You'll find them all on the IVM Facebook page or website. Or can we just suggest downloading the handy dandy app so that we can spam you for life?
And thank you very much, guys. See you in a fortnight.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcasts galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.